My father introduced me, and now it's my son's turn. Woodworking is a passion we'll share forever. Woodcraft understands that. Their people know the right tool for the job, and they make sure we understand how to use it. Their help? It means a lot. Woodcraft knows how we feel because they feel the same way. You know, I enjoy sharing my secrets, and now Jake's teaching me some things too. Woodcraft, helping you make wood work.
Titebond wood glues, the pro's advantage.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of I Can Do That. I'm your host, Chad Stanton. And on our last episode, we made this router table. And I kind of teased you at the end of the video saying that you could make drawers for it. Well, that's going to be our topic for conversation today, is drawers. So let's take a look at the one that I made specifically for here. Now for this particular project, this small drawer, I was able to make a simple rabbet drawer construction. But if I wanted to make a bigger drawer, say like for an end table or even a chest of drawers, I would want to make one that has an interlocking joint to it. This essentially has a tenon and a dado that's going to be together, and this is going to give it more strength. Now the best thing is, both of these drawer methods I can do right here on this little router table. So let me get this set up and start showing you how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to start with the simplest of the two drawers, and we'll come back to this one a little bit later. These drawers are going to be made out of some 1/2-inch dimensional lumber that you can get at the big box store. We're also going to be using a 1/4-inch router bit for this. So let me show you how I'm going to measure to get the pieces for this style drawer. I'll place the board in so it goes all the way to the back. And then I'll mark on the front edge here. Now this is not the length that I want to cut the board at, because you'll notice that I have a 1/4 inch on the front and I have a 1/4 inch for the back. So that means I have to subtract a 1/2 inch off of this board. And I'm going to place an X on the waist side of the blade. Now the front, you'll notice that the front goes the whole width of our opening. So I can do the same thing. Now when I cut the front and back pieces, I'm going to want to give myself a little bit of room so that the drawer doesn't bind. So I'm going to cut about a 1/16 off of this, which will give me a 32nd on both sides of that drawer. Now to make sure that I get accurate cuts on all these, I'm going to put a stop block on my miter saw, and then I can go ahead and cut all the sides, readjust it, cut all the fronts, and then I'll come back and we'll do some setup for the router. But before I use any power equipment, I want to make sure that I wear my hearing protection and safety glasses. So I have all the pieces cut here, the front and back, the sides, and the bottom is the same length as the sides. Now there's actually going to be 2 cuts that we're going to make with the router table, but the first one we're doing is going to be this rabbet cut. And you can see that here on one of the pieces that's disassembled. And the same thing is going to be done for the bottom. Now to set this up in the router, I have the 1/4 inch bit in there and it's raised up a 1/4 inch. Now I could measure this with a combination square, but the method that I prefer to do is I've picked up some 1/4-inch steel stock from the big box store, and I'm going to raise it up just where the bit is flush with the metal. So to give you an idea what's being done here, you can see that the cut is a 1/4-inch deep on the bottom, and this is going to be the approach that it's going to make on the router bit. Okay, now I have to set the fence for this. The way I want to do this is I'm going to move the bit to where it's at its widest point, and I'm going to have that touch the fence. Now with a combination square, I want to move it so that I'm hitting flush all the way across that. And now I'm going to slide the fence down to our opening. And I'll put a couple of clamps on it here. And I'm going to have to make a test cut because odds are I'm going to have to tweak it forward or back just a little bit. But it's important that I keep the same distance at both ends of this fence. All right, let me do my test piece. I'll come back and show you how to make the actual cut. So I made my test cut here, and I'm liking the fit. So let me show you what I'm using. I have that sled for the router table, and the sled has this sacrificial board attached to it, which I just simply screwed one on. Now the sled is going to do a couple things for me. One, as I'm pushing this piece across, it's going to help keep me square. The second thing it's going to do is, as this wood exits, the router bit wants to blow the wood apart, which you can see happened on the sacrificial board. But by keeping the workpiece up tight against that, we should have some cleaner joints. Okay, I also marked all my pieces to where I want to put those rabbets on it so I don't get it confused. And one last thing, I have some paraffin wax here, which I'm going to rub on the table. This will help everything slide just a little bit. And I'm going to put it right here on the edge as well. Okay, I'm ready to make the cut. Okay, now this sled works great for going across grain with it, but now I have to go with the grain. So I can remove this, but I want to make sure I keep my fingers away from that. So you can get one of these push pads, which keeps my hand out of the way, and it also has like a little gripper to it, which is going to aid me in pushing that wood through. All right, well, I have a little bit to clean up here from that. But then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set it up to make our second cut. Okay, so I took a few minutes to reset up the router fence. Now, I don't have to change the height of the bit at all. We're good to go on that. But I did move the fence back 1/4 of an inch. What I'm trying to achieve is I need to make a groove that runs the length of the pieces. This is what's going to accept the bottom piece. Okay. To get that 1/4 of an inch, it's kind of hard to measure with the tape measure. So once again, that square stock comes in handy. I'll place it in, and I want to turn the bit to its widest point to where the square stock is just touching it. Clamp it down, and once again, make a test cut. Okay, I think I'm good to go. Now on this, I'm not going to use the sled like I did before. The reason being is I'm making this cut going with the grain, so I shouldn't expect any blowout. And with the push pad, I'm applying pressure down and forward, and then with this hand, I'm applying just a little bit of pressure to keep it tight against the fence. Okay, I marked my pieces where I want the grooves to go, and now I'm going to make the cuts. All right, let's see how it goes together. I'll put the bottom in. I'll put a front piece on. Okay, not bad. I'm going to sand these edges a little bit. I'll put some glue on it, clamp it up, And then when it's done, I'll probably have to plane the tops, get it all perfectly flat. But that should complete one style of drawer. Okay, so here's the other drawer style we're going to make. And once again, let me show you the differences between the two. To begin with, you'll notice that the side on this is much longer. On this one originally, we measured the depth, and then we subtracted a quarter inch, and made our cuts. On this one though, it's going to run the whole length of it. And we're going to have to subtract the front and back, taking a quarter off each side or a ½ inch. The other major difference in it is the joinery construction. Now this one is a lighter constructed drawer, where this style is going to be able to handle more weight. Say like if you had a drawer for your silverware. This one would have the tendency after a while to pull apart. But this one would last a lot longer because this rabbet is actually housed into the groove on the side pieces. Now, there's some disadvantages to this drawer. To begin with, the front of it is not very appealing. You're going to have end grain showing versus the face grain. And you have these holes left behind. That's from the groove for the bottom. So on a drawer like this, you would probably want to put a drawer front on it. Also too, when we are using the router for this, we're going to be cutting against that end grain, and it has the tendency sometimes to chip and break out. Now, these drawers are so small, I'm not too worried about the seasonal changing of it. Because this is solid wood, it will have the tendency to want to expand and contract, but these are really small. However, if I was making a larger drawer, something to keep in mind is you might want to take the bottom piece and run a hand plane on it, just making it slightly smaller, and then you can route it. Okay, let's open this up and take a look at the individual pieces. So you see on this one, we have the groove going along the bottom as well as going along on the end grain. And the front piece has that rabbet, but on the back side we have that groove. Now, these grooves, well, our router table is still set up with it with that 1/4 inch spacing. So I don't really have to make any changes. So let me get my pieces measured, cut, and then we'll come right back here and I'll show you how to make those grooves. So I just wanted to double check one more time my setting here. So I have the 1/4 inch stock in here between the fence and the bit. And once again, I want to make sure that this is running parallel with the edge. So I put my square on there and it looks good. So I have all my pieces marked where I want those grooves going. I have them going with the grain and across it. And it's always a good habit whenever you're routing to do the end grain first. So with that being said, I'm going to need my sled again, and I have that sacrificial board put on there because remember, it's going to cause that blowout. And hopefully we're going to prevent that. Okay, I don't have to change any settings because I'm gonna go make the groove for the bottom. And because I'm going with the grain, all I need is my push block. Okay, the front piece isn't quite finished yet. We still have to put the rabbet cut onto the other side. So let me reset this up just like we had before, and I'll make that cut. So I took a few minutes to mark all the pieces that are going to get that rabbet cut. And I brought the fence forward, readjusted it. I've put another sacrificial board back on the sled because I'm cutting the cross grain first. All right, let me make the cut. Okay, I'm going to take a minute and just sand these edges a little bit, and we'll see how it fits. All right, so here's all the pieces for that drawer, and I'm just going to glue it up now. Now when I'm putting the glue on, I want to get it down into the groove as well as on the edge. We have the end grain here, which is going to tend to suck the glue into the wood, but we also have some surface of the face grain. Now the bottom, I don't want to put any glue on that because I'm going to want that to move a little bit. Okay, I'll put a couple of clamps on this, let it dry. And then when it's done, I'll probably take the block plane to the top just to make sure it's all flat and even. Now let's take a look at one that is dry over here. And as I mentioned before, if this is going into a cabinet, well, we have to cover up that ugly end grain and those holes left behind. And I mentioned before that we would use a drawer front for it. In this case, we're going to make a full overlaid drawer front. That goes the whole width of what our cabinet would be. Now, getting the spacing between the drawers is really important for it to work right and for it to look nice. So here's my method for putting it together. I'll slide the drawer in, and then I grab some of these laminate samples that they have at the big box store. These make great spacers. So I'll place a couple at the bottom, and I'll put my drawer front here. Now what I want to do is, because this is the same width as the cabinet, I want to make sure that stays that way. So I bring the drawer front right to the edge here, keeping this all in line. Now I'll put a small clamp on this to hold it in place. I'm going to double check one more time. Okay, it looks good. Now I can pull this out, and I can put a couple of screws in there to hold the drawer front secure. Now let's say that I did that. And we have to deal with the next drawer. Pretty much the same procedure. Put the drawer in, another laminate sample, the drawer front, line it up, put the clamp on, pull it out, secure it. This could go on for as many drawers as you have. Well, there you go. Our first project made with our router table, the drawers. And I think it dresses it up really nicely. Plus, we learned 2 different methods to make drawers. Now, there's a whole bunch of different techniques for making drawers, but this gets you going down the right path. Plus, we did these methods using only 1 router bit. So stay tuned, because we're going to use this guy some more in the future to make other projects. So we'll see you again right here on I Can Do That.